Business vehicle. Hello, my name is Lau Chinan. Today we're going to look at a topic called business vehicle. Have you ever wondered if you would like to start a business of your own? And if, let's say, that has been a question in your mind, then today's session might be relevant to you. Now let us look at what exactly does it mean to talk about business vehicle. So let's say you would like to start a business, and obviously let's just say you want to start a logistic business. And what are the valid questions that will go through your mind? Perhaps you are thinking of, buying some delivery van. You might want to rent a shop where you can start your business. You might be looking at how to transact with your customers. You're going to take orders from them. You're going to charge them. Now, these are all valid questions that you're going to start with when you want to start a business. Am I right? Now, so for renting a shop or even buying a vehicle, the next big questions that you're going to take into account is actually a name. You need a name. Now, what do you mean by you need a name? Okay, let's just take for an example. If you would like to buy a delivery van, the next thing that you're going to do is to tell basically the company that will sell you the van who will be the owner of the van, which is what you're looking now at the screen that I've highlighted to you. So in this case, he can have an options where the vehicle could be registered under his personal name. Let's just make a name called Lee Chong Ming, okay? Or if let's say Chong Ming has registered a business, he could actually register the ownership of the vehicle under his business entity name. Now in this case, I'm going to call it LCM Logistic and Transport. Now alternatively, what he could have done is he could have incorporated what we call a company and then register the name of the vehicle in his company's name. Now to differentiate what is a company, it's the way how you would describe the name. It's actually required by the law. So in this case, to identify a company, we can put behind the name this little phrase called Sdn Bhd, which is a short form for Sdn Bhd, or in English it means limited liabilities. All right, private limited liability. Now, so how do you identify whether you have registered this or whether this is a company? Now, usually we have to go through a process where you need to go to SSM and then you have to register. Now, if you are registering this as a business, it will go under ROB. If let's say this is incorporated as a company, you will find that this will be done under ROC. Now, you notice there's also something called limited liability partnership, right? Now, I will take you through LLP at the end of this session, shall we? Okay. Now, another issues that we're going to take into account is when you have started your business, how do you intend to bill your customer or invoice your customer? Now, this is a very important and it's a very valid question, because at the end of the day, you're doing business, you want to charge your customer. How will you get your customers to pay you? That's going to be a very important question that you need to consider. And obviously, think about that. You're going to issue an invoice, right? Now, let's say you're going to create a template of your own invoice. Now, this is basically a template of an invoice that you might have. And you notice that you need to fill in something that you see. It says there, company's name. Basically, you need a name so that anybody who transacts with you will be able to, pay you for your services that they've acquired from you. Now, if you've done your business through your own personal name, that means it's Lee Chong Ming, then it goes. That's where people will pay you to you directly, and then you will bang in the money into your personal account. But in business, we don't very often come across that, because people will be wondering, why am I doing business with Lee Chong Ming? Can you imagine you're going to DHL, and then you're going to get their service to do transportation, logistics for some of your goods, and at the end of the day, when the invoice comes, it's a name called Lee Chong Ming. You're going to say, am I not doing business with DHL? Why is there an individual name? You probably will wonder, is this a scam? Is this a fraud? Now, that could be all the kind of issues or doubts that could be in the mind of your customer. So usually we don't do that because it's actually not very professional, right? Now, but at least if you've got a business registered, you can get them to pay to LCM Logistics and Transport, and it looks better. It's more professional that way. Or alternatively, this could have been done through a company that you've incorporated, like what we say here, LCM Logistic Transport Sdn Bhd. So with that in mind, then when your customers send a payment to you, I'm just giving an example, if they draw up a check for you, they will fill in the name called LCM Logistic and Transport Sdn Bhd. Now, I would like you all to look at what are the differences if, let's say, my business is carried on using a business registration, or if my business is carried on through a company that I've incorporated. Now, let's say Lee Chong Ming, okay? If he decided to carry on business through ROB, a business registration, which is what we call LCM Logistic and Transport. Now, from the legal perspective, we will see this as his business. So you can say I've drawn a circle around him, right? So it will be his business. Now, but if let's say he decides to do it through a company, then you will see that Lee Chong Ming will actually incorporate another company called LCM Logistic Transport Sdn Bhd, and Lee Chong Ming will be a shareholder of the company. Now, legal point of view, these are two separate entities. So Lee Chong Ming and the Logistics Sdn Bhd, they are separate entities. Now, what exactly does a separate legal entity mean? Why is that significant, especially when we're talking about doing business? Now, think and see, if LCM Logistic and Transport owes the supplier 200,000, assuming you got liability. We call this as a liability when you owe monies to people. And assuming that the business is unable to pay. Now, for whatever reason, you know, maybe your business is badly managed, maybe you've gone through a crisis. It can be any reasons that you can't pay up your supplier. Now, the next thing that supplier might do is to take a legal action against you. So they will sue Lee Chong Ming. Well, that's because the owner of the business is Mr. Lee, and they will sue him personally. Now, what will happen when Lee Chong Ming is being sued by the creditor? You will actually need to find money to pay the creditor. If you are, you need to pay, you have to pay. And you say, what if Lee does not have enough money in the business? Now, then the court will order that your personal assets will have to be liquidated to settle the debts. So you expect your house that you're staying will be affected, the car that you own personally will also be affected. Now, on the other hand, right, if you have incorporated Sdn Bhd, let's use LCM Logistic and Transport Sdn Bhd, and now that the company owes supplier 200,000, and the same problem happens, and now the creditors decided to take action against the company. So they will sue the company, but they don't and they cannot sue Lee Chong Ming as a shareholder. So personally, Lee does not hold accountable to the debts owed by the Sdn Bhd because they are separate legal entities. So you can see the beauty of doing business as a Sdn Bhd in terms of how it can protect your personal assets from being implicated into the business activity. So you don't have to worry about creditors coming after you personally. Right, so how do you exactly incorporate a company? So let's look at the process involved. Now, you will need at least one shareholder, that's the owner of the company, and you also need to have at least one director for the company. that they can actually be named under the same individual. That means the shareholder and the director are the same person, but they carry different capacity, they carry different role. And of course, you still need to appoint at least one company secretary. Now, how would you look at all that? Now, sometimes if you go to, bank for any banking transactions, like applying for a loan, you probably will come across they ask for various supporting documents. Now, sometimes you will see they mention things like the Form 9, 24, 49, that's the old version. Nowadays, they will quote like Section 17, 58, 78. Now, we call these as the statutory documents of a company. So if you have incorporated a company, right, you will have all these documents to prove them that they are yours. I mean, you're legally the shareholder, you're the directors, and you can even purchase all these documents from SSM. Anybody can purchase it, so that's why they can verify that this is true or not true. And when you purchase all these documents from SSM, you can even have a service like to have it digitally certified that these are true copies, and they're doing it through blockchain technologies. Basically, you can scan the QR code to verify that this is a real document. So it's not so easy for people to cheat or to falsify. You can't just take a PDF document and change the detail and then send it to the bank. So all these things can be verified, basically. Okay, now, so if you have incorporated a company, now the format that we're using for your statutory documents is called Form 17, 58 and 78. We don't call it form, but we call it section 17, 58 and 78, to prove the identity of the shareholder, the directors, the detail of the company's registration, and so on. Now, you see a lot of all these. This is exactly a screenshot that I've taken from Hong Leong Bank, assuming if you want to open up a bank account or loan account. Now, that is the process involved. Now, so the questions that we're going to ask over here is, what are the advantages of incorporating a company as your business vehicle? Why would you want to use a company? Why not just go through a sole proprietor or even a partnership? Now, the first thing we have just said earlier is separate legal entity. The shareholders are not liable for the debts of the company. So if the companies are unable to settle the debts, they cannot sue the shareholders personally. So that's a very important point for us to take into account. Now, the second thing is the tax planning benefits, and there's actually a lot of tax planning possibilities that we're talking about over here. Now, take for example, a company can pay director, and assuming if the director is also the shareholder, they can pay the director's salary, which in the hands of the director is a kind of employment income. They can take advantage of higher EPF contributions so that the company will be able to get more deduction. From the company's perspective, when you have more expenses, you have more deductions, you have less profit, you pay less tax. But of course, when this money or this payment is made in the hands of the directors, they have to declare this as an employment income, and they will have to pay income tax, right? But the income tax rate can be lower for a resident individual, so that the company will have less profit to pay less tax, while the individual, which is the director, will also pay less income taxes because of the lower income tax rate. Now, and being a company, if you're a small, we call SME or a small company, you can also enjoy a lower tax rate, which is at 17%. Now, this can go rather technical if you are not somebody who understands taxes. But what I'm trying to share to you is setting up a company has the opportunity for tax planning. That's going to be a very, very good thing to take into account. Now, in terms of financing, actually it's much easier for a company to apply bank loan than a sole proprietor. Now, you might ask, like, why is it so? especially when you take into account, you say, as a sole proprietor, you don't have a personal liability. You have unlimited liability, whereas a company has a limited liability. So isn't that it make more sense for individual to get loan than company? Now, it is not true, because as a company, you have your financial statements audited, which gives more credibility to the bank. They see that company maintains a better systems, a better recording. So they like the idea that things are being well kept, which is not so messy. And even when the company grant or approve a loan to a Sdn Bhd, many times they will also require the director, which also most of the time will be the shareholder, to give their personal guarantee. So they still do that, but that significantly improve the chance of a company getting a loan. So you find that it's a good thing that you can manage your business cash flows in a more, I would say, efficient manner, and you can even enjoy a lower interest rate, that when the bank sees the borrower, which is the company, as a lower risk company because of their good cash flow management, good financial results. So all that can be an advantage. Now, another thing that we have to take into account is actually succession planning. We are all not going to be on earth forever. We know one thing for sure is we all going to die. Okay, so the questions is, I'm having a lot of, let's say, businesses with me, assets with me, and I need to actually think about the dying process. You see, when I'm no longer on earth, the question is, who will take over all the assets that belong to me when I'm alive? Now, so think about transferring your business. Just think about a simple process of father transferring business to the son. Now, if you are a sole proprietor, can you imagine if you've got 20 vehicles and you've got 2 properties? It's not a lot, okay? But, the process of transferring the ownership from one individual to another individual is you got to go to the JPJ to do the transfer of ownership, and the vehicle will have to go through inspection. You need to go Puspakom and run through checks, and you have to do it for all the 20 vehicles, and you have to do it for the 2 properties as well. So the amount of work, the tedious amount of work and the headache that you have to go through is, I would say, unbearable. Okay, so it's actually a very complicated process, and it's a very time-consuming process that you have to go through. And this can be so much easier if you're doing it as a Sdn Bhd, because all the assets belong to the company, which is a legal entity. And what you're going to do is you just transfer the ownership of the share. So I just have to make sure that when I, if I want to transfer everything in the company to my son, I just have to transfer my share to my son. And the beauty of transferring your ownership in the company is you can transfer based on the percentage of ownership. So if I want to give everything to my son, I can give 100% of my share. But if I thought that I just want to give 30% of the company to my son, I can just give 30% of the share. So you can see that it's so much easier, right, for us to deal with succession planning. What about LLP? We talked about LLP just now, and I didn't really mention specifically about what exactly is a limited liability partnership. So I would like to briefly introduce this thing to you. Now, how do you identify a limited liability partnership? Is through the name. You can see the word Sdn Bhd to identify that that's a company, that's a private limited company. Or you see the word Bhd, which is a public company. So for a limited liability partnership, you will see the word PLT, which means Perkongsian Liability Terhad. I think I got a mistake in the spelling. It's not TY, it's TI. Okay, so that's how we identify that this is a limited liability partnership. Now, LLP is actually a hybrid form of a company or a Sdn Bhd. Why do you say it's a hybrid form? because it has the advantages of a company plus. Okay, so like a Sdn Bhd, it is a separate legal entity with limited liability, exactly the same. You can transfer your PLT share like how you transfer the company share. It has the same kind of advantages of a company. You can talk about the same kind of tax advantages as well. Now, but you have additional advantages being LLP is you do not need a company secretary, so you save a lot of money there. You do not need to do, statutory audit, so you save up on audit fees. You do not need to run a GM. So all these can be the savings that you're going to get through LLP. So you wish to start a business, right? So please consider if you want to start a business using a sole proprietorship, or if you're going to involve a few more persons to own the business, that's a partnership. You got to do it through the ROB, all right, the registration of business at SSM. But if you have taken into account what I've just explained to you and you thought that, oh yeah, company is a better option or LLP is a better option, then you have to go through the ROC or the LLP registration at the SSM. Now, the choice of business vehicle. That's what you're thinking before even you want to start a business properly. Now, from the income tax perspective, if you have started a sole proprietorship, you are actually seen as an individual person. So you will file your tax return using this form called Borang B. Now, if let's say you have incorporated a company, the company will be a person. Remember the separate entity. The company itself will have to file in their tax return, and they're going to use something called Borang C. If let's say you have started LLP, then LLP itself will be another person, and then LLP will have to furnish tax return using Borang PT. Now, that will be a choice of your business vehicle. So I hope it gives you a short introduction about what kind of business vehicles that you're going to use. Now, of course, there's a lot more considerations that you need to take into account. Now, my name is Mr. Lau, so that's me, and I'm from Genesis Origo. If you want to know more about Genesis Origo, please visit our website. That's my personal, that's a WhatsApp number that comes to me. Or if you want to send in any inquiries through our email, that's our email address. Now, what do we do as Genesis Origo? We are a training center. We provide, we're an ACCA approved learning provider. We provide ACCA courses, also LCCI courses for those that are at the entry level. We also run HRDC courses and in-house training for companies according to their needs. We have a network of experts that can train on various different disciplines according to the needs of the company. Now, we also provide consultancy services. So if businesses who want to start up and they need to get an advice on how to do, and then how to raise finance and what kind of business vehicles, who is going to deal with their accounts, how to appoint a company secretary, well, of course, that's also part of what we're doing, okay? So I hope that these sessions has benefited you, and thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Bye-bye.